Hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. I am a man who just spilled water all over his lap here during that intro video.
Good Lord.
Jordan Wiegand. Along with me today is somebody that is Timothy Weah's cousin, Logan Stump.
I'm so confused. Who's actually related?
For people that missed that, oh, there's the cat. If anybody missed that, Tim Weah is now saying that Patrick Weah is not his cousin. So a little bit of intrigue there. With us today as well is the guys from the final third. We have AJ.
Hello.
And Jack.
Hello there.
A good topical
I like
reference there.
Yeah, I know.
For the audio listeners, I am wearing my R2-D2 Mickey Mouse ears and my Mandalorian shirt. And this mug is what spilled water all over me during this. So that was a disaster. But that's what happens when you do video, I guess. So we are going to be talking some Minnesota United, which is why the guys from the final third are here. But first, happy May 4th. May the 4th be with you and also with you, to the glory of Darth Vader and Obi-Wan and everybody up above. AJ, I want to start with you here. Just how was your weekend?
Weekend, other than Minnesota United unfortunately losing to Austin FC, it was pretty good. Up here in Minnesota, where Jack and I are both based, it's been getting a lot warmer. We're in the middle of final season, but with like the weather getting better, you can't help but feel a little bit better about the entire world right now, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Jack, how was your weekend?
It again, like AJ said, Minnesota United losing was a bit of a damper, but I did get to go to the stadium, to Allianz Field, to see it in person. So,
you were there.
Yeah, so I guess I got to see the loss in person, which makes the loss a little bit less sad because I was actually able to be in the stadium again, but didn't really dampen it too much. But yeah, I also had family around, so that was a great weekend for me. So
awesome. So let's get a little into the heartbreak, I guess, here. Minnesota United, bottom of the league, 3 straight losses, 2 of those home games, right?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if we look at my predictions here, I have them in third with the MLS Cup. Not looking good right now. Though I will say, disclaimer, 2016 Seattle Sounders started off very bad. They turned it around midsummer with Smetzer and Ladero. So maybe there's a chance. Maybe. So let's start. I'll pitch it to you, AJ, first. What needs to happen for them to turn it around? Like, what is ultimately the issue, you think? Is it just the defense, or is there something deeper going on here?
I think when you're really looking at it, most of the team is kind of broken right now, from the tactics to the defense to the attack. Tactically, we're kind of at an impasse right now where Adrian Heath and the team kind of need to decide whether the current system that they're playing is the right system. We've been kind of playing, and Jack can correct me if I'm wrong here, but we've been kind of playing like this high press style with a lot of our players moving very far up the field. And as our 4-0 drubbing to Seattle Sounders have shown, and our losses since then have shown, it just has not been playing in our favor. Our defense gets hung out to dry, I suppose, because you have Michael Boxall, you have Raitala and Gasper, and all of our fullbacks and defense trying to move up, and they just can't track back when an actual counterattack happens against that. Couple that with the fact that our attack has been kind of disjointed, not being able to connect with each other. And like I said before, our defense moving way far up the field. It's kind of been a mess every single game, to the point where we haven't been in a winning position. I tweeted about this. We haven't been in a winning position, Minnesota United, since the Seattle Sounders loss last season. We've always been either, starting off 0-0 or losing. And so that's just made it really tough for Minnesota United there. And I'm sure Jack has more things to say about that too.
Yeah, go ahead, Jack. What's your thoughts here? Is there, what is ultimately the underlying issue, and what do they got to fix here?
Yeah, I think the issue is kind of twofold because, like AJ was talking about, the defense, we have a bit of problems there. Like in the stadium itself, it's a lot more apparent than it might appear on TV because when they were attacking the Austin goal towards the beginning of like the first half, my seat's near the corner flag near our goal. And our defense is entirely in the other side of the field. So one lawn ball over, and I saw it several times, one lawn ball over, across, and there's a chance. And, it on the goal where we conceded against Austin, our only player that was tracking back defending was Rowan Menir, our right back, who was all the way up the field. He crossed over onto the other side to try and defend because Michael Boxall, I love him. He's one of my favorite players. He's slow. He is very slow. And because of that, we're really getting smashed on that counterattack. Any long ball over the top and it's over. So I think the defense is a big issue. That might be fixed once Bakaye Dibasi gets back from injury, but that's definitely one area. The other one is the disjointed attack. There has not been a consistent attacking lineup in any of our games this season. We've had a completely different lineup every single time, and it's clear that the chemistry just isn't really there between some of these players, and swapping them out just isn't working. And you can also really see it. There's a big loss from Kevin Molino leaving as well. It's so apparent when you watch Minnesota try and play that they're missing a Kevin Molino-sized hole in the left wing right there. We can't create from that side. We almost always attack up the right because Menir has been one of our more dangerous players. So we really need some kind of magic on the left, I guess, is the main thing in the attack that we need to fix. And those are kind of like the two main problems I see.
I was going to say, because if you look at, when I was watching the Seattle game, the first half, and we were watching along with you guys, the first half, it seemed like, it seemed like Minnesota was that team that everybody was going to be like, okay, yeah, so this team is competitive. They're, playing well against the Seattle team that many at first thought weren't good, but then we come to find out Seattle's a really good team. So you have that first half to kind of look back at. And then you watch that Real Salt Lake game, and it seems like there was like some disjointed play in the back between the defenders. It seems like, Minnesota's having a real tough time in the attack. I pulled an interesting stat, and I want to ask you guys about, just kind of looking at the attack too. The Loons had just 2 shots on target in the match against Austin. They've got 8 of 54 shots this season that have been on target, lowest percentage in the league. Who can you kind of turn to? Where does Minnesota turn to now to kind of find these answers in the attack, seeing how, it looks like it's Reynoso or bust at this point?
Yeah, it's been really tough for Minnesota to kind of create chances and convert chances in the final third. No pun intended for that. But like you said, yeah, Reynoso or bust is definitely the case. Reynoso has been a focal point for opposition defense, and it makes sense. He did score or create 6 assists last year in 3 games in the playoffs. He's in the top, 80th percentile for dribbles completed, progressive passes. He creates maybe 0.5 assists per 90, something like that. And because of that, he has been at least attempted to be snuffed out by a lot of these defenses. And so we can't really turn to a lot of attacking threats because, like Jack said, when we had Kevin Molino, we were able to kind of have 2 outputs. We have Reynoso, who can lay it out to Molino, or Molino, who could run forward and potentially create something. When we have, Ethan Finley, who, great guy, but he's kind of past his prime and his output's not there, or Robin Lod, whose best position is right now on the right, where he's not being deployed, it kind of raises a lot of question marks because we don't have a solid left winger, and our striker position is also up in the air. So that just adds the disjointedness, and we really just don't have a solid output to rely on.
Do you think any of this does any of this fall on Adrian Heath at all? Is it like you said, when picking the attacking lineups, not being consistent? Like, how much of it is on him? Because I sometimes feel like, sorry, my dog's going nuts. When you watch like this team at times, if sometimes it doesn't seem like they're up for it, and I'm not sure if that's the players he's picking or the vibe he's giving. How many times can you say that you're the underdogs before you actually believe you are the underdogs and not good enough for the team?
Yeah, well, I think some of the blame definitely falls onto Heath, right? Because he is, at the end of the day, he is the coach. He's responsible for making these decisions. And, it's kind of funny because in the stadium at the Austin game, Heath made substitutions in the 60th minute. And like in my little stand in the area around, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, a substitution made in the 60th minute? Is this Adrian Heath?" Because one thing that he's very reluctant to do is change the style when it's not working. It's really like plan A, and there's not really a good plan B. There is a plan B, but it doesn't come until like the 80th minute at those times. And because of that, you're not giving enough chance for like these kinds of guys to change the game. Like I'd argue that when he came onto the pitch, Patrick Weah was one of the best players from Minnesota that we've seen this season, honestly, because he created chances. He almost scored on his debut like 2 minutes after coming on. And, he was a really big threat. And same with Justin McMaster. But these guys just aren't getting the same minutes as a lot of the veterans, because another thing that we've AJ and I both noticed with Adrian Heath is that he doesn't always play who is like, on form, or like who he thinks it might be, who we think might be the best for this situation, but whoever he thinks can be the best for or is the best player technically, and not necessarily taking into that form, sort of, which kind of hurts us a little bit. And I think the bigger portion is that substitution effect, like giving not really going to a plan B has hurt us a lot.
It's interesting because Jim Curtin gets a lot of flack for that too, actually, not wanting to make all the subs or making subs. That they were actually very shocked at the Champions League game when he switched out Corey Burke for Santos at halftime, because he usually would wait 60th minute or later and never use all the subs. So same sort of frustrations there. It seems like it happens a lot in this league, particularly, where they don't want to make substitutions, or they wait. They don't, especially when you have 5 subs for the MLS. It's like, why not use them? Because at that point you're just hurting yourself. Because if the other team's using all 5, then they're going to have a leg up, because they're going to have 5 fresh legs on the field, or I guess 10 fresh legs, right? On the field, while you're left with the 2 or 3 subs you made. Logan, did you have another question?
Yeah, looking forward, obviously this weekend they've got Colorado, who actually looked pretty good against Vancouver, it looks like, because Sam Vines is back. They were pushed Kellen Acosta up. So a team that's going to be difficult to beat, it's at Colorado. And then you go and play Vancouver, which might be a team that you can kind of get healthy on. What is the panic level right now? I mean, are you guys feeling a little bit of the heat? Do you think that, it does look like they have a favorable schedule coming up to where if they can just play their soccer, I think that they can beat some of these teams. But what's the panic level right now for you guys and maybe some of the Minnesota people that you know?
Yeah, well, Minnesota United fans are known for panicking. One of the inside jokes within the fan base is #panic. So it's, our panic levels are always at 11 out of 10 all the time. But, in terms of realistically, there is some panic to be had, not including last season. Only 4 teams have ever started out with 3 straight losses and gone off to make the playoffs. Most notably, Seattle Sounders when they won the MLS Cup in 2016. Mm-hmm. So it's possible to, in the next few run of games, get healthy, but there are going to need to be structural changes in order to get that to happen. But it all starts with the very next game and the game after that. We need to get some points at Colorado, some points at Vancouver, some points when our home matches come back, and we have the ability to try to build some momentum. It all starts there, but there's definitely going to need to be some real changes both on the player side and the management side in order to get that ball rolling. That's just what I think about my panic levels personally.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. The panic levels are, I'd say they're at about mid-level, because this is, the worst start to a season that Minnesota United have ever had.
Oh, yeah,
Right.
right. I forgot to mention that.
Right.
Yeah, it's worse than the inaugural season, where we were like one of the worst teams to ever play in MLS, arguably. And, it's a little bit shocking, because I think almost everyone was like, oh, this is a team that's challenging for MLS Cup. This is a team that's challenging for Supporters Shield even. And yeah, the predictions right up there, third place, both you guys predicted. I put them second as well. So I'm
as did I.
Yeah. So we, I feel like it's just a bit of a shock, and the natural reaction is just to turn to some panic. But I ultimately am of the opinion that in these, especially the last game, Minnesota don't look necessarily terrible. They look promising, but just making really bad mistakes that cost them a lot. So I think that, they've got to retool some things, but my panic levels are around that middle, like about a 5 out of 10 maybe. And if we lose or get no points from the next game, that'll probably rise to a 7 or 8. Honestly, it's only exponential growth from here.
No, I guess one last thing before we let you guys off here. Can you guys just tell us a little bit about the podcast and how people can find you? I know we haven't had you guys on. You had us on over at Final Third, and I clearly stomped Jordan right into the ground with my predictions. So maybe just give us a little bit of insight on your guys' pod and where people can find your work.
Yeah, so we are the Final Third podcast. We don't just talk about Minnesota United, although whenever we do well or badly, we like to mention them. We talk about all things MLS, U.S. national team, Premier League, UCL, Serie A. Try to talk about all kinds of things in soccer. Particularly, we like to talk about the big picture of soccer. We like to go over the big stories on and off the field. We have our prediction game, which you guys have both been on. Logan, obviously the superior host.
Clearly,
yeah. And we also have our deep dive episodes, which are, looking at our stats, have been very, very popular. We like to talk about the big trends in soccer that we've been noticing. This upcoming Thursday, we have a deep dive episode on the future of football in light of the Glazers protests out of Manchester United. And we've also been talking about the economic wealth gap between big and small teams. And also, when the European Super League happened, we talked about the implications of the fall of that. So, we like to keep things really big picture. So if anyone of your listeners are interested in hearing more of that, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Final Third Show, and on wherever you listen to your podcasts, the Final Third podcast. Jack, did I miss anything there? I'm sure I did.
Actually, no. I think you covered everything that we usually cover in a little spiel there. So that was good.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll have to have you guys on again once Mourinho flames out at Roma and gets the job at Minnesota.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
one.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that's coming down the pipeline. But
right.
yeah, thanks again, guys.
Yeah, it was great to come on. Thank you guys. And love the podcast. Everyone who's listening, follow them, give them a rating. They're great guys.
Thanks, AJ. Thanks, Jack.
And that was AJ and Jack from the Final Third. And we are back now to talk some other teams other than Minnesota here. But Logan, I want to ask you first, what was your takeaway from what we heard from the Final Third guys there?
That the panic hashtag is running rampant through Minnesota United Twitter, as it should be. I think that there is some reason to be concerned. A team that starts out with 3 losses is not a team that is sound by any means. So I think that it is rightfully so, something to panic about. And, I took away from them just the fact that the defense looks in disarray, the attack looks in disarray. So basically the only thing left is Reynoso doesn't look in disarray. So that's ultimately what I took away from it. How about you?
Yeah, it was, I think, kind of what we expected, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it is. Sorry, I'm just getting used to you having the background and not the green screen. I got so used to you with the green screen
Sorry.
on that interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I felt like it was good to kind of hear it from them, especially Jack, who was in the stadium, for that Austin loss, because you do see things differently in the stadium than you do when you're watching on TV, obviously, right? Because you can kind of see the stuff that's cut off from the TV screens, more off the ball movement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So let's segue into that, Logan. You went to your second Orlando City game.
I did.
This one, a lot better than the first game against Atlanta, and 33 seconds in or whatever, it's 1-0 Orlando City. What was your thoughts there? Because it sounded louder than last week, 2 weeks ago, and it just felt like a better atmosphere, better game. Like the atmosphere really came through the screen for me.
I think the biggest difference is the night games. I think that the night games, because when you're playing at 3:00 in Orlando, that's like the worst time as far as temperature. People are like, all right, I'm excited, but it's really hot. So I think that was part of it. I think also I think that there's this feeling around Orlando that I get, listening to podcasts and kind of listening to what the fans are saying, that they're waiting for the struggle to happen because it has been a rough go, except for last year for Orlando City. So I think that there's some of that aspect to it as well. So I think it's kind of like that cautiously optimistic. We're going into the game and we're excited, but once it actually kicks off, it's kind of like really quiet all of a sudden. And then as soon as that happens, and it was a really bad start for Cincinnati. I mean, as bad as you could possibly get, and it kind of shows what was going to happen in that first half. It tore the place up. I mean, it just got loud, and it was loud for straight from 30 seconds in all the way till the final whistle, which was a great atmosphere. It was a lot of fun Saturday night. It was a beautiful night. It was like 80 degrees with like a really slight breeze. So just a beautiful Orlando night, and I think that had a lot to do with it as well. But cautiously optimistic fans, Orlando, start quiet, don't be loud until we do something right.
Till the first 30 seconds where you're like, oh, right. No, this is great. Yeah,
awesome. This is what we expected.
And two of those goals were at your end, right?
Yeah, Tesho's goal was at my end, and the Nani goal was at my end. Yeah. But the Nani goal, I honestly, I almost started recording it because you could tell he was trying to gearing up to kind of make that kick from that right outside the box. And when he did it, that place, when that happened, it erupted. I mean, it was loud, and they do the things with the lights where it like flashes and it goes dark and it like flashes and stuff. And then Nani was going absolutely nuts. He probably is one of the best goal celebrations in the whole league. He runs towards midfield and he does the thing where he's doing all this and running at the camera. So, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I had a blast. And Orlando City kicked the Cincinnati's teeth in. So
I was very jealous because I was watching that game on my phone while watching the Union game on the TV.
Yeah, and
I almost was like, should I switch these two because the Union were a disaster? But let's start with this Orlando game, I guess. Kind of talk about this. Cincinnati, no Luciano Acosta. 1 minute and 31 seconds, Akindele scores the earliest goal in Orlando City history. Nani had a great piece of skill to score the second one. Junior Urso scored the third in the 80th minute. Cincinnati just never really looked up to this. And they now have a -8 goal differential. Did we overestimate Cincinnati? Are they wooden spoon contenders after all? The last two games without Luciano Acosta looked a little rough, right? They got killed, 5-0 against NYCFC, 3-0 against Orlando. With Acosta, they had at least 2 goals in the first, 12 minutes last week, like the first week of the season. But, as we look at this, we had We had them. I have them 9th. You have them 10th. We don't have them in the Golden Boot conversation at all. But this type of goal differential, 2 straight beatings, obviously away from home. So I guess take for that what you will. But it doesn't look good, does it?
No, and I'll tell you what. Watching live, I was watching Orlando, obviously, but I was actually paying attention to kind of what their midfield looked like. And so you had Jurgen Locadia up front, and then in behind him is kind of like a second striker. You had Brenner. He was kind of, honestly, he looked more like he was trying to play like a 10 role, which was really bizarre. And then you had like the 4 midfielders and then the 4 in the back. There was a lot of space because Brenner wants to be up front, so there's nobody there. So it's like playing a really deep midfield and trying to hope that they can. So then they had Barriel and Atanga, who are wingers technically. They play more winger. They were kind of forced to go up some because Brenner can't create out of a 10. It's not his role. So that was confusing. And then Kubo, he's not a mid. Like whatever they have him doing, he kind of lays back as a defensive midfielder, and he is not ready for whatever he's doing there. Joe Zhao playing in a right back spot. I don't like, he's trying to figure that role out because he's more of a midfielder. But I'll tell you, there was no pressing really. I mean, once Orlando scored that first goal, which was 30 seconds in, you just it deflated. You had a lot of guys that just don't press. Hagelin and Pedersen are just not a good combo. They look really lost most of the time. Just trying to find out who they're marking in the box. There was a times where Mueller was just dissecting it as he wished. But Brenner was like way out of position up like in the midfield and not anywhere near the striker position. And Jurgen Locadia is not going to score. So not in this league. It doesn't seem like that's something he's going to be doing successfully ever. So they look lazy. They look tired. They look like a team that, I listened to the Cincy Soccer Talk guys, and they were talking about like how Yap, like give him time. I don't know how much more time he's going to get because it looked bad. It looked like a team that gave up.
Here is some positives. Okay. You went from giving up 5 last week to only 3 this week. And I don't think either of these were from set pieces.
No.
So it is a incremental
step forward.
Step forward. I mean, but here's the thing: when you're giving up goals that early, it changes the match, right? Like the NYCFC game, I think was giving up that goal a minute and 2 minutes in. It was very early.
Yep.
And then this one was 30 seconds in. You lose all momentum, and I feel like this team just immediately gets down. And I don't think they would have lost this bad of score lines if they didn't give up both of those goals super early in these weeks, because you could kind of grow into the game. But once you give up a goal like 30 seconds in, I feel like Orlando's like, it's there for the taking, right? Like, well, we're going to get them now. We're going to go get out and get it because this team's not prepared. They're not ready. And I don't know why they're not. I do think Jaap Stam should have some time. But I think you can only give them till the end of this season. If they are wooden spoon winners, then no. Look, I know he came in kind of like after the COVID situation last year, before the I think it was before the MLS's back tournament.
Yeah, it was right before.
Then he had almost a full season. It was a 2020 season, but it was almost a full 2020 season because they only played 2 games before that, right? Before COVID shut it down. And then you have all of this season to base it off of, and you say, I don't think this is cutting it. Would you be okay with them letting them go at the end of this season if they're like 14th, 13th place?
I mean, yeah, honestly, I don't think he'd last that long if they're down there. I think. See, here's the tough part because you're right. I mean, it was a really tough year last year, and they hired him kind of late. But I mean, you're looking at a team that they don't even look organized. They don't look organized defensively. They've got 2 really shiny attacking pieces, and I know Lucho hasn't played, so that's kind of been an issue. But Brenner hasn't really looked threatening. He only has a goal because of the penalty. He's been sucked back into a role that I'm not sure why that was even considered. I mean, I'd much rather play with anybody that's an attacking midfielder at the number 10 than having a striker play like a 10 role. It wasn't a second
Is
striker.
it because they don't have a 10 without a cost?
They don't.
Is that
No,
why?
they definitely don't.
That's probably why they had to do
Right.
it, right? I mean, they're like,
Yeah. I mean, who knows at this point? What do you do? I mean, it's not like their schedule's going to get easier. They're not much better than a lot of these teams right now.
It was a tough schedule, though. Let's say
it was
Let's
tougher,
go out
yes.
and say this is tough.
Yeah.
You got Nashville,
At home.
NYCFC,
Yep. All these away games.
Orlando. All three of these games away.
Mhm.
But the issue is you cannot run into a situation. So this is before you were not born, but before you were an MLS, before you came out of the MLS womb,
Yeah.
right? So you're Toronto FC, perennial powerhouse now, but they had a super huge fan base when they first joined the league, akin to Cincinnati, akin to like Orlando, akin to like these situations where you're like, oh, they really support their team really well. Like, this is great to see, all this kind of stuff. It took them forever to get into the playoffs, to get into the playoffs. Then they win MLS Cup. So you're like, okay, great. Like the year after, their second year in the playoffs. But while they were still struggling to get in the playoffs in those like 9 years, the fan base dwindles, right? Because you can't keep affording to have this great fan base in an area without putting product on the field. Orlando kind of ran into that before they signed Oscar Pereira. When they're hiring these random Logan's almost dusting away here, but you have these random, like James Conner. Is it James Conner or James O'Connor? The manager for Orlando a few years ago, before Oscar Pereira, and you weren't seeing any sort of growth for Orlando. Really, they bring in Pereira, and now everybody's like, "Oh yeah, this is exciting, right? This is great." Cincinnati can't do that. They cannot have the situation where like Orlando started off with great fan interest, dipped, and now it's coming back.
It is.
Right. So obviously if you win, stuff comes back. But if you go into this lull where you are like the Baltimore Orioles of MLS, right? And you are very bad, and you have a fan base that can thrive in Cincinnati, and you have a great new stadium that's opening up in Cincinnati that we're going to call West End Stadium on this show, then you cannot afford for it to dip because you can't get your stuff together. That is brilliant. So Logan has a picture here with Obi-Wan Kenobi because it's May 4th.
I thought it was appropriate.
These aren't the starts you're looking for, and it has Cincinnati, Minnesota, and Portland Timbers, which we'll get to all those. We'll get to Portland in a little bit. But so let's just end Cincinnati talk on this, right? You cannot afford to have this issue. And look, they're trying. They brought in Brenner for lots of money. They brought in Acosta. They're trying to do something. And I think that's why at the end of the season, if they're 14th, 13th, maybe 12th, they have to be like, maybe we move on from Jaap Stam. Which would be tough because people were saying the same thing about Jim Curtin for a while, and he's turned it around. But you think some of these players you think Brenner's going to stay here if it's going to tank his value elsewhere? You think, with the luxury Jim Curtin had is that the Philadelphia Union were not spending, and they were like, oh, all these kids are who we're going to bank on, and he taught all those kids when they were young. So like that was kind of why he was afforded that time, and I can't see Jaap Stam getting more than this year unless they make a playoff run or fall right outside of the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't see it. It
has to be an increase from last year.
Yeah. And right now it doesn't. I mean, it's tough to go from really bad to really bad again, but they're on their track right now. But like you said, really tough schedule. Interested to see what they do in the next coming week.
All right. So let's go ahead into our headlines here, and then we'll go to some of these other games. So we already talked Minnesota. So I'll start with one of my other headlines here, and I'll go with the CCL teams again because this is going to cover a good chunk of these teams. When we look at the CCL teams, the Union, well, let's cover this first. The Union beat Atlanta 3-0, upsetting all of Atlanta Twitter, which was fantastic.
How dare they?
Some of those
gonna get worse
tweets were
tonight.
kind of funny. It's gonna get really bad. Unless if Atlanta could turn it around tonight, probably gonna see a lot more of those tweets. But it was 3-0 win. Atlanta was peppering that goal in the first half. Blake stands on his head a bit. Then we get some counterattack goals for Philadelphia. They win 3-0. Fantastic result tonight. A week ago and tonight they're set up. Those are 3 away goals. They're in Subaru Park tonight at 8 p.m., which if you're listening to this on Wednesday, sorry you missed it. But so that's kind of a key thing here. But when we look at the league form of all these teams, we look at the standings and we look at the schedule. And right now we have Atlanta the highest in the East with 5th out of these CCL teams. Then you have Columbus in 10th. You have Toronto in 11th, Philadelphia in 12th. On the West Coast, you have none of them in the top, right? Because it's just
they're
Portland,
all sucked down,
right?
It's
just Portland in the Champions League on the West, right?
Yeah.
They have Portland in 12th place in the West. None of these teams have looked really sharp. And I get it. It's all, you're going through a lot here. It's the beginning of the season, but you also have this travel. I thought maybe the Union would have a leg up on that because they literally went down to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
They went up to Subaru Park to play NYCFC, and then they play there again tonight. So, they didn't have to go too much out of their way, but they fell apart here against NYCFC in what was a disaster class, I'd say, right? Of course, they had some rotations of players, but so no Shabilko playing. You have a 5-minute goal from Medina scoring. Then you have a red card in the 16th minute for Jose Martinez. He also he's missing tonight's game as well, so he's getting an extended rest because he got a second yellow or whatever in the first leg, or enough yellows in the first leg to miss the yellow card accumulation. Then you have NYCFC finishing with 23 shots, 7 of those on target with 67% possession, and you have Castellanos scoring in the 65th minute to make it 2-0 NYCFC over Philadelphia, and that is Philadelphia. Had not lost a game at Subaru Park all regular season last year, and now have just lost 2 in a row at Subaru Park. So a little bit of a problem.
It just seems like the rotation of players, and honestly, I think they do it more than Europe does. Because when I was looking at, we'll get to a game later with Portland, that same thing. They just rotate players in that really impact the attack. Not having Shabilko play kind of affects things. And then going to men down. What are you supposed to do at that point? New York City played like they had 10 men. Controlled possession, had 60% of possession in the first half, had 23 shots, 7 on target. And then, throughout the whole game, it was like 60-some% to New York City FC. So it was just not a game that Philly was really destined to win. And even before Martinez gets the red, I thought that NYCFC controlled the pace really well. So, it's been a really tough start for these CCL teams, which we'll get into.
Yeah, it was once you're down a goal and then down a man in the first 15 minutes, it's pretty much over. I said to myself, okay, this game's over.
Right.
There's no way they come back from this. And sadly, I was right. When we look at other CCL teams real quick, we have Portland at FC Dallas. So let's get this Portland game out of the way. Portland lose 4-1.
Yeah, this was brutal.
Ricarte 2 minutes in for Dallas. O'Brien 13 minutes in. Bressanelli, if I said that right, for Dallas in the 45th + 3. 62nd minute, you got Williamson for Portland. Then in the 85th minute, Sealy for Dallas. And that was, Ebobisi has come onto the pitch in the 75th minute, making a season debut. But it just was a a slaughter, really. And it's making me feel really good about one instance of my predictions, and that's that Dallas pick. I have in 6 right now. Feeling pretty good there. Yeah. What was your thoughts here as Portland got demolished? We have them first with winning Supporters Shield, which,
Yeah. So just to look at the guys that were missing out of the starting 11, you had Valeri out, Diego Chara was out of the 11, Williamson was out of the 11, Mabiala was out of the 11, Van Rankin, Atenella, Aspria. So you had the guys sitting the bench. Now, I will say most of them came on the half, but by that time it's 3-0. What are you going to do with that mess, heap of a mess left? The kid in goal, he was, what was his name? It was good. It's escaping me now. Hunter Sudel, Sute. He made his professional debut and looked like a kid that hadn't really played in MLS. So, I think that it was a mixture of just rotation and then Dallas. I think Dallas playing pretty well right now. I mean, they're feeling pretty confident. They're scoring at least. They played San Jose last week and scored. So, I think they're feeling a little bit better about their scoring. They go in here and do this. But like you said, it really was just a slaughter of Portland, but it wasn't technically a team that was any, shell of what a Portland team really looks like. So, but I did want to ask you one thing. Did you see the Hollingshead thing with Gio Savarese?
Yeah. So we should probably talk about that, huh?
Yeah.
It's one of those things where I think it's funny, but don't do that type of thing.
Yeah.
He's saying that Savarese kind of started it somehow. I forget what his exact quote was, but yeah, not something to get real riled up about the way some people did. It's just one of those things where you're like, that's interesting, but yeah, don't do that. That's probably not the best idea to do that.
Yeah, especially to Portland.
Yeah. Yeah, so let's go ahead and move on here to Atlanta versus New England Revolution, which finished 2-1 in favor of the Revs with a Brandon Bye goal 19 minutes in, a Mourinho PK for Atlanta, and then a 53rd minute Carlos Gil, I guess you pronounce it with the H, right?
Yeah.
Penalty kick. So that, gives Revs the 3 points. They are unbeaten in 3 matches. I didn't think their first 2 games were all that spectacular, though.
No.
But so we'll see how it goes. We'll check where they land on the power rankings at the end of the show here. But Atlanta, they just got whooped 3-0 at home against the Union. Then they go to the Revs. They, pull a, I don't know, not really a Falcons because they never had to lead. But, they go up there and they lose. And now they have to face the Union at Subaru Park. And, they rested some players, it looks like, as well, right? Like they didn't start Barco, Joseph, Robinson, or Bello. Is this like they're trying to save it for Champions League? Because I just honestly don't see it coming from 3-0 away goals down.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, Barco's hurt because he's out tonight, and Dom's hurt. So they're going to miss the game tonight. But like you said, I think you want to field a team that's respectable. I think you field a team that shows your fans that, hey, we tried. But yeah, like you said, 3-0. Where do you? I mean, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to prove? Can you even? I mean, that would take a miraculous comeback of epic proportions and a collapse like no other for Philadelphia to squander that one. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's a little bit of like, some of these guys still need some rest. Joseph, don't be shocked if you don't see him very much, just because I think he's still trying to get his time figured out and how much run he can get. But yeah, like you said, I think a lot of it's just resting its players and trying to get, healthy. But like you said, New England hasn't been great, but I think they've done enough because the East has just been kind of a mess right now. A lot of your bottom teams, I think, that will end up at the bottom are kind of playing pretty well, and you got these CCL teams that are trying to figure out the tournament. But I think once all this stuff gets out of the way here this week, you're going to start seeing some of these bigger teams start to get back into form and hopefully some fitness, and they can try to see what they can do in the East.
So we only have one more Champions League team to talk about, it looks like, because Toronto was not playing this week since of the uneven number of teams. So we have the Crew against Montreal. That finished 0-0. Not really much to talk about, right?
That was not good.
Columbus had no shots in the first half. As this was at Montreal, which means it's actually at Florida and Miami. There's no Mensah playing. There was no Mason Toy for Montreal. Montreal had 5 shots and 1 on target going into the hydration break. They had more shots, but not a lot of threatening shots.
No.
The Crew's first shot came in the 70th minute, and their best chance came in the 74th. They're a deep team that we talked about, but it seems like, they're still off to this slow start. So we'll see how it goes, because we got games tonight, right? So in the Champions League, we got games tonight. They don't play till tomorrow, May 5th, Revenge of the 5th. And that is at 8 o'clock against Monterrey. They're even on aggregate with Monterrey, but Monterrey has the away goals. So they got to turn it around somehow here. I mean, they started off pretty slow here as well, right? They've had 2 games, 2 draws, one against the Union, 0-0, and one against Montreal, 0-0. Montreal, we're still kind of up in the air about, right? They're 4th place in the East with 5 points, but we still don't really know how for real they are. So we don't really know if this is a good point for Montreal, for Columbus yet at all. It's a great point for Montreal, I think, even though they're at home, away from home. But what's your take on this game? Because there wasn't much, I don't think.
Yeah, it was bad. It was not. I was watching it. I actually put it on the iPad because I think I was going to say the LAFC game came on, so I had them up. But yeah, it was really bad. It was, the Crew looked really tired in the Florida heat. That's what it looked like. I mean, it looked like they weren't used to playing in this heat. It looked like, and Miami's a different animal when it comes to heat, and their stadium really doesn't help. So I think that, it had something to do with that. It had something to do with them playing midweek, and they did play a lot of their guys. I mean, it's not like they rotated it. They had Santos, they had Zelarayan. BWP got his first start with the Crew. Vormgers came back. He was starting in center back. I know Mensah's out, but ETN played. So it wasn't like this team was like slouching and they played, the young kids. It was a lot of their good guys, and it's concerning because they just didn't have the link up play. And when Zelarayan doesn't do anything, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the Crew. If he has to miss any time coming up, it could be really interesting for the Crew, just because he is so good in the middle, that link up play, even if he's not involved in goal scoring or assist, he can find teammates, and he's a bother for the defense because they have to try to figure out where he is. And I thought Montreal defended it pretty well. So overall, it was a pretty boring game other than that.
I'm very happy with the matches I chose to watch this weekend, because that was on at the same time as SKC at RSL, and I was like, I'm watching that one.
That's what I was watching. Yep, that was the one on the TV. Yep.
Because we started off with Chicago at Red Bulls, which was a really bad first half, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Then then I switched to SKC at RSL, and then you started watching the Crew game on your iPad, like you said, and I was like, I only have the one screen right now, so I'm sticking with this one, and I was very pleased. Because that game got pretty good. So they kept showing the score at the bottom of the SKC game, and I was like, okay, I'm still not missing anything right now. All right, so that was my headlines with the CCL teams. So let's go ahead and go to one of your headlines.
So we kind of went through New England, but I tell you one thing: Carlos Heel played probably the best that he's played all year. He had some touches. He had 2 touches that were just world class. Ones that you just look at him in awe, and you're just confused as to how he can be so good. But so far, I mean, he's got a goal and 2 assists. I thought that he's finally started to look a lot better and getting into form. So that, and again, we talked about this with the guys from New England Resroot about, what can we expect from them? And they said pretty much if Heal's healthy and he's playing well, then it's a team that can be very threatening in the East. If he's not going, then this is a team that really could struggle to find something in scoring. So I think that's been, something that we've been watching. But I will say Carlos Heel finally starting to look like he is going to do some damage here. He had a PK in the 53rd minute. And so, yeah, I think getting him on the score sheet and getting him involved more is going to help this New England team become even better than what they are right now.
All right, let's go ahead and talk one of my last headline here. Smetzer changing formations for the season. We kind of alluded to this to week 1 when they demolished Minnesota.
Right.
Which we're not sure how exactly that looks right now, right? But when you look at game 2, right, and they played, I'm blanking right now on who they played last week. They played
LAFC.
LAFC, right, and they drew.
Right.
And then this week they drew. They played against LA Galaxy and won 3-0. And they're top of the West, 7 points. This is without Jordan Morris, who was arguably one of their best players, last year and in the other years. They've been playing. They switched to a new formation. They're playing 2 strikers up top because they don't have somebody to replace the wingers, for Jordan Morris on the left. And I just think that deserves a headline. That deserves some, some kudos, because that is not hard to do. I mean, it's not easy to do, right? Kind of the opposite of what I was trying to say. I feel like sometimes coaches get in this rut where they're like, this is the way I play. Look at a Jose Mourinho. He's going to go to Roma and he's going to just play the same way, right? They go somewhere, they say, this is the way we play. This is the way I play. And if Morris is down, I'm going to need somebody to play that same exact role, and we're going to keep this thing running. But instead he's like, no, let's change it up. We're going to play a different formation, and we're seeing great results for it. And what's great is when Morris is ever healthy again, they could be like, you know what? We can go back to what worked before too. If people are getting used to this new formation, we can switch it up again our old way. If Morris is out or, it's just working the way it is, maybe we stick with this one. You have now like 2 formations that you can use at any time, depending on who's healthy. And I think that works a lot better than just being like, okay, what's plan B? We talk about that with Liverpool on stoppage time. What's plan B for Liverpool when their attack is not scoring? They don't have one.
Yeah.
They don't have one.
They don't have anything.
I'm always begging for Liverpool to get a center forward that can, like a Diego Costa, that can go up there and just be mean, be physical, and head the ball in the goal, or just be a poacher that's selfish and score goals, because it changes it up. Oh, we've been crossing it in to nobody, or Salah's been dribbling and nobody's been putting it in the back of the net. How about we switch it up and change our approach? And I like that that's what Seattle's been able to do here. That, even mid-game at some point, they could be like, you know what, let's revert back to this. Or, even when Morris is healthy, if something's going on there, he could be like, you know what, let's switch that out. We're going to go 2 at the top again, and we're going to switch it up. And this could help them years from now as well. But I just think it's great to see some adjustments there, because I just do feel like managers at times land on a crutch of, this is what works, this is what we're going to do, replace the player with the next cog in the machine almost, Get somebody that's like Morris, slip them in there, and we'll go. Instead, they did something entirely different.
Yeah, and not to mention you got Nico Ladero back from injury. I thought that he looked good in his return back to the lineup. I thought, being back in that side is going to add a whole different element to them. Raul Rui Diaz has been so good. Bruin has been so good. The Roldan's link-up play between Alex and then Christian has been fantastic. They're interchanging their abilities to get into the attack and create in the attack, both of them kind of putting balls in between, far in between. I think that it's definitely interesting Did Jordan leave? Hey, what the heck? Oh, well, yeah. So, yeah, I think it's just interesting that that Seattle has been so good for so long. There you are. You're back. I just kept talking at this point. So, yeah.
Sorry, I clicked unmute my mic and it just died. Like
Yeah.
everything ended, and I was like, "What is going?"
That's just
All
weird.
right. Yeah, I missed what you said, but
No. Anyway, I was just saying that every single person on this team, if you just look up and down this team, they're just so solid. And like you said, with Jordan Morris gone, obviously he's going to be a big hole to fill. But I think that these guys have just been placed and plugged into these positions, and they've changed the formation. They don't really need that Jordan Morris type position and role anymore. So I think they just kind of evaporate it. And now they're going with this 2-striker front, which I really like because Rui Diaz has been just so good. And not to mention that Brad Smith has been worldy lately. He's been like the Lionel Messi of Seattle. With his really long stint at Liverpool, I'm sure he's learned how to play some really good soccer.
yeah. So that was Rui Diaz in the 20th minute, then Smith in the 23rd, and then Rui Diaz again in the 90+3. Really just the worst game that Galaxy have played this season. So, and look, I'm not going to jump on Vanny or LA about this because I thought Chicharito had some chances, but ultimately I can't blame it on him either because your team needs to get it to you. I think he had one that I can really think of like, oh, maybe you should have scored that. But sometimes you're going to come up against these good teams, and I think we're all leaning that Seattle is a good team. And they're just going to be a little too much for you on those days. We have Seattle in 5th and 4th, and I'm starting to think that's really wrong. We'll see how it goes throughout the full season. This is MLS; anything can happen. But I do think that maybe we underestimated them this year, which is fine. They can prove us wrong all they want,
right?
Because I do enjoy watching them play. So I will be happily wrong on that one. So. Let's go to one of your other headlines, which is I'll let you pick Rubio Rubin or Cade Cowell.
Let's do the Rubio Rubin one because we've mentioned RSL and we've mentioned SKC here recently. So Rubio Rubin, for those that don't know, finally got to play in front of his parents for the first time in his professional career, which was a really cool story. They were actually at the game. Yeah. Just a fantastic story, and boy, did he deliver. This is 2 weeks in a row now because they've only played 2 matches because of the uneven schedule. 2 weeks now, Rubin's got 2 goals and 2 assists. He was the link-up play with Anderson Julio. And RSL, in the attack, these are 2 pieces that they added in the offseason, Anderson Julio and Rubio Rubin, and they just look really good. They look really solid in the attack, which was a big concern. I know when we talked and previewed them that was the big concern. Who can they add to this attack to make them better? Because I think their defense is serviceable. I think it's not one of the top in the league, but I think that they can get a job done. Glad Aaron Herrera, who got hurt, is back in their back line. So it's a team that we really underestimated. I think. Maybe.
Yeah, I was just sharing that. We're at 11th. We have them 11th.
Right. But I will say now the difference is the West is, I think the worst teams got even better. Like I think San Jose got better. Houston definitely got better. You're looking at Vancouver, who has been serviceable, hasn't won much, but they've been better. Defensively, they don't leak as much. So RSL, I mean, you're looking at teams that have gotten better that kind of hang out in that bottom spot. And RSL is going to need it because it's a log jam in the West. But yeah, no, I think that it looks cool. It was a great story. And RSL just took it to SKC.
Yeah, so let's talk about that for a little bit here. Alan Polito, 17 minutes in, gives SKC the lead. They have Krylak in the 35th minute for RSL. Then in the 52nd, you got Rubio Rubin, and then in the 77th. That finishes 3-1. We got a new a new tradition in RSL in Salt Lake here. At the end of the game, Ochoa is going to kick a game-signed ball into the stands of the fans. This is a reference to what we talked about last week with him kicking the ball into the Minnesota fans. Do we like this? Do we like this, Logan? This new tradition?
I like it. I think it's great. I think it's cool because that's a section in behind the net where it's not your season ticket holders usually. It's usually people that buy the games. And actually, I saw the ball landed. I think it landed at the person that gave it to the kid that has David Ochoa's signature on it. I really like this because I think that he can place kicks. And they even talked about maybe doing like man of the match, having kick him in. I always just think it would be fun to have Ochoa kick him up there, but maybe you could have, the tradition where they could, and this one really is just like lofted barely up off the ground. I love the tradition. I think it's cool because you get memorabilia. It's a cool moment. Like, hey, I was at this game and this is the ball that they used. And no, I think it's a great moment, and I think it's a cool tradition that RSL started in. Plus, it's just cheeky towards the Minnesota fans, and now I think it's a big rivalry, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and hey, we even had a Minnesota player kick their own fan in the head with a ball, drilled him, because it was such a shot that went wayward, and it was way more dangerous than Ochoa's kick. So this is why I do enjoy this as well. I think this is fun. Hopefully he doesn't get fined every time he does it, though. I think with the fact that it's on purpose for sure, it should not be fined. Let's go with your last one then here. Cade Cowell and the San Jose Quakes versus DC United. I had a heck of a time trying to watch this one.
Yeah, you did.
due to some very issues with blackouts for
lovely.
DC United. And then when I went on the app to watch NBC Sports Washington on my Fire Stick, it was like, the Wizards are on. And I'm like, yeah, they are, but this game is also on. And I'm like, so click this. And then it still played the Wizards because it said the Wizards are on. It's all it said was on. And I was like, but this game is also on because I'm watching it on my phone on the same app. So how can I not get it on my TV on the same app? It was frustrating. Very frustrating. Not sure what's going on. It was late too. And I'm like missing all this stuff. And I'm like, I can't even get this going. But I did catch a little bit of it once I got it working. And then it was like, okay, time for bed. 4-1 San Jose over DC United. Shofis scored 1 minute in. 26 minutes in, Cade Cowell scores. 31 minutes in, Alfaro scores for DC to make it 2-1 to San Jose. Then you have Jackson Ewell in the 43rd and 85th minute. One of those, an absolute cracking goal. 2 assists and a goal for Cade Cowell. Pretty big day for him. 17 years old.
Yeah, and what's impressive about him is just how strong he is for a kid. He doesn't look like a kid. He looks like a man-child. If you haven't seen him, Google him. He's not real tall.
Man-child in a good way.
Yeah,
not like not a bad man-child.
No. But if you look at him, he's 5'8", so he's not tall in stature. But in all honesty, like the kid is just unbelievably talented. When you look at him, he kind of has like reminiscence of like a little bit of Aguero-ish, where he kind of makes these turns. And he's quick, so when he does make the turns, he gets away and gets into space really easily. He's really good with the ball. His assist to Shofis in that first minute was really good. They kicked the ball to him, and like a one-time touch, he hits the pass at an angle away from the defender where the defender was, and it was like at first it was like, what the heck was he doing? But you could tell he did it to angle it that way because he was going to go with it. So he kind of angles this ball and he takes off running, and it probably went 5 or 6 yards away from him. Towards the midfield, and then he kind of just lays one off into Shofis's run, and Shofis makes that nice run and gets that ball and scores. And it's funny because I was listening to Goss and them do the U.S. men's national team depth, and they're like, wait, do we add this kid in? Where does this kid go? Where does he fit? Which is funny just because it's like now, I mean, think about it. you've got him, you've got Hoppy who comes out of nowhere, you've got DK that's a young kid that comes out of nowhere, Cole Bassett's really, I mean, you've got all these young talented players that just keep coming, and the U.S. just churning out these players, and Cade Cowell is no exception. And I think, looking at him as he does get older, he's only 17, so as he does get older, I think that he does start to throw his name in that conversation because he's built so low to the ground. He's strong and physical. He's fast, and really can create in the open. So I really like what Cade Cowell can offer.
All right, yeah, let's talk LAFC Houston. Corey Baird scored another goal 55 minutes in. We had an entertaining 2 minutes here with Corey Baird scoring in the 55th, 57th minute, Pasher scoring, who I know you're a big fan of. Very sloppy first half here, but we get the 2 goals. Vela's still out with an injury. So can we just address the issue on week 1 where Vela's like trying to say he didn't need a sub because he's been out for 2 weeks. So I think Bob made the right move. Maybe it was premature, but I think Vela goes back out there for 5 minutes and then probably is like, nah, I got to get out of here. So all the uproar that happened of Bob shouldn't have done that. Bob should have, whatever, seems to have been worth nothing, right? Like I think Bob got this right at the end of the day because taking him out 20 minutes in or whatever, and he's still out for 2 weeks, you could have risked more damage if he stayed out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and especially in a leg, like a quad, a leg. I mean, that's really dangerous because that weakens that muscle in around the knee, and he's had issues before. So it looks like a great move now by Bob Bradley when it looked like a joke that first week, and we kind of laughed about it. But like you said, those 2 minutes were really entertaining. The rest of it, I thought Houston actually looked the better team. I think Diego Rossi is still trying to kind of find his legs. Atuesta continues to play well, but how much can he provide if it's just him? Latif Blessing played really well. But yeah, there's not really much to say besides the fact that they really miss Carlos Vela. And if you're an LAFC fan, Jordan, are you concerned about this? Because now it just seems like he's starting to get into that. Well, now he's just missing time constantly.
No. I think get me to. They have 5 points, which is pretty good. I think get me into the playoffs. Anything can happen. Look, they've won Supporter Shield and got nowhere in the playoffs before. You're maybe a little concerned about Vela injury-wise. But, again, good move by Bob. He only played 20 minutes this season or so, and maybe he'll have a quicker rebound. Maybe he'll be back sooner than we think. And I think LAFC are still in a good spot here. I'm not pressing any sort of panic buttons if I'm an LAFC fan. All right, I think we have like 1 game left or 2 games left here. We have the Inter at Nashville. This was bad. This was bad. We had no Higuain brothers. We kind of mentioned why last week their mother passed away. We get a really great chance early in the match here for Inter Miami. They get some good shots on target. Then we kind of have nothing. Nashville very struggling. 3 home matches and just 3 points. Luckily, they didn't give up any goals this game because then they would have lost because there was no way they were probably scoring. But the last 2 games, they give up 2 quick goals and then have to fight their way back, which I thought was good. Like, oh, we're fighting our way back. This time they weathered the storm early, but still came with nothing to show of it other than that 1 point. So you could probably actually add Nashville to that these aren't the starts you're looking for picture that you have behind you because I think this isn't the start they're looking for after a great season last year. And I don't really know what else to say about it. It wasn't a great game.
Yeah, in Nashville, I mean, they put loads of chances on goal. That Cincy game, I'm shocked that they actually that they drew that game. They had so many chances to go up. They lead the league in shots on goal, 60.
And now when you look at Cincy too, you're like, how can you not beat them? Right?
Yeah, lead the league in shots in shots, 60 shots, and then 24 shots on target. So having just 4 goals out of that's concerning. And we talked to Drake about this, and I know Yonder Cadiz came in and played well in a limited time and limited capacity, limited sample size last season. But you're starting to see, like, if Hani Mukhtar is not going to score, Randall Leal is going to eventually score a little bit, but not a ton. So then you need a guy like Yonder Cadiz to score, or a CJ Sapong who wasn't available. So I think it's concerning because yes, they have a lot of options up front, but they don't have like that proven goal scorer in the league.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we have Colorado Rapids versus Vancouver. Colorado win this one 1-0 on another Rubio scoring. Not Rubin, a different Rubio here
Diego.
scoring. This was on at like the bizarre, weird time as the same
PM.
time during the middle of the I think it started during the Galaxy game.
It did. Yep. It was 10:30. Yeah.
Just bizarre because
Yeah.
you're like, we're in the middle of a nationally televised game and you're playing this random other game. Work this out better, MLS.
Yeah.
You know, you want those fans that are watching Colorado, Vancouver to also be tuned into your nationally televised games so they have higher ratings.
Mm-hmm.
Not like, oh, I have to watch this local sports team instead of the national game because that's my team. Like, just that'd be like having a game on Monday Night Football that starts an hour after Monday Night Football starts.
Yeah.
And nobody else can watch it unless you're on ESPN Plus. You're like, nope, this is it. Like, only the diehards are watching this one.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, not much to really say here. Great free kick from Diego Rubio to give them the lead. Vancouver kind of been wishy-washy this year. They're in 9th with 4 points. They're only 3 points back of first, honestly. I mean, like, the West is actually really stacked. You have only one team without any points in MLS right now, and that's Minnesota. But anybody other than Minnesota in the West has at least 3 points.
Mm-hmm.
When you look at the East, there's 4 teams with 1 point and 1 team with 2 points, and then you have 3 teams with 3 and then higher. So definitely looks like the West is that stronger conference once again.
I was gonna say there's not much. Like I said, the West bottom teams got better. Even Vancouver got better. Like, they're not good, but they got better. Diber Casado, Cavallini's playing well. They just need a 10, which I think they'll go out and get because they've been talking about it for like months now. But I guess on the flip side, Colorado had Sam Vines back in. Now it looks like a totally different team because he can fill into that left back spot. Kellen Acosta comes up out of that left back spot that he'd been playing for some odd reason. They thought that was a good idea. And he was he's just not a left back. But Sam Vines comes back, and Jordan, I don't know if you saw any of it, but Sam Vines looked really, really good. Really poised in the attack. He controlled most of the ball. He controlled possession. He was finding open space. And then he was defending really well, able to chase people down extremely well. He can defend, which is not really normal for a left back in this time who can attack like he can. So it's like, what in the world are we watching? And I think, honestly, I think that he ends up winning that left back spot for the national team. I think that, I think or is it right back that day?
Don't say it on Twitter. Don't say it on Twitter. You'll have the Anthony Robinson stands coming at you.
Well, they can come at me all they want, but Fulham is not
staying up. That's
yeah,
for sure.
So I don't
They're
think
going down.
I think I think that the Rapids have given. No, I'm kidding. But no, I love Sam. I love what he did. I thought he was their best player in qualifying. I thought that he just adds so much. talent that not a lot of them do. I don't think Anthony Robinson, I hadn't watched him play as much, but the limited experience I have watching him, it's never been like eye popping. Where Sam jumps out at you, like he's like, "Whoa, who's that?" Much more qualified, I think. But I guess I'll stop talking so that the Fulham fans leave me alone.
I was going to say so we could wrap this up.
Yeah.
All right, so let's look at the power rankings. I'm going to put them up here, and I'm going to ask you to defend these. We're going to go one by one. I'm going to ask you why you placed them here, and I'll challenge you if I disagree.
Okay.
Okay?
Hey, look
All
at
right.
that. Millennium Falcon.
Yeah, this is a nice power ranking one for May the 4th. All right, so here we go. Number 1. No, let's go number 5. Let's go number 5 here. You have Orlando City. Defend it, Logan. Why are they number 5 right now?
Defensively, they're probably one of the best, I would say, top 5 defenses in the league right now. Gaese has 2 clean sheets. They're missing Joao Matinho. They are playing without Janssen, and they're still keeping up with the likes of Atlanta. Cincinnati has been rough, so they, it's been kind of a toss-up. But I guess you could say shut down Brenner, whatever. And then in SKC, at Children's Mercy Park, holding them to 1, and honestly, the one that they gave up probably shouldn't have been a goal. They look good defensively. When you're looking at the attack, a healthy Pato made them look. I thought that they had some chances there in that Atlanta game that they just didn't put away. They go to SKC, and I think that they had probably their best performance of the year. I know that people will be like, "Oh, well, what about Cincinnati?" It's kind of tough to say that Cincinnati's your best win because it's just they've been so bad. But I think that with their depth too, I mean, they're bringing like Andres Perea in, they're bringing Benji Michel in. I mean, those are guys that are quality youth players that are kind of sucking into that midfield. You've got Schlegel that'll be coming off the bench when Janssen's in the starting 11. You also have Kyle Smith, who's played extremely well, filling in. So, it's a stacked team, and Joao Matinho is probably arguably one of their best players. So it's a good team. It's a stacked team. Nani's played well. Chris Mueller's played well. And then there's teams behind them that I just don't think have played quite well enough yet. And they're, I think, 3rd in the East right now behind some of these teams that we're going to get into.
Yeah, so they have the second best defense in the East. Columbus has given up 0 goals, but they've only played 2 games. Seattle has given up only 1 goal as well in the West, which is the same amount of goals that Orlando has given up, just the 1 here. So, yeah, pretty good defense there for Orlando. Let's go number 4. You have RSL. They've only played 2 games. Why are they 4th?
Yeah, so I hate the power standings that kind of just put people where they expect them to kind of be. Like, why you have Columbus Crew up that high right now. Like, look at it. Don't look at it as who they have, because who they have might not work out. And then you kind of look like an idiot putting Columbus at 2nd, or. So I did this by going about who's in form and who's playing well. This is how I do power rankings. In RSL, 2 games, I thought against I think a very decent SKC team. I think they're a playoff team. SKC, they made them look really bad. It was at home. I think Anderson Julio and Rubin have just torn it up since getting there. They dismantled Minnesota. It's a really good team with a decent defense. Ochoa might be arguably in the conversation for being one of the top keepers, I think, at the end of the season. So I think that it's a combination of those, the defense, and now they figured out their attack. And I think that that's something going forward that they can kind of ride out. Again, they play 2 good teams, and I'm looking forward to see what they do.
Number 3, NYCFC.
Yeah, so last week we had Union ranked up here in these spots.
Yeah, good call.
Yeah, thanks. NYCFC smashed them in. Not smashed them in, but they played them extremely well. 10 men down, or 10 men. They score 5.
10 men down. Oh,
10
geez,
men down. Yeah, so they're playing with the keeper, right? No. 10 men on the pitch. Man, I'm having a hard time today.
Could you imagine just one, like just the keeper? That keeper's like, oh no, what am I facing here?
It's like an onslaught. No, it's but no, NYCFC, I thought that they've played really well against Cincinnati, even though Cincinnati, again, kind of not that team that you're really proud in beating. But to go into Subaru and beat Philadelphia, and before Jose Martinez gets put off, I thought that they looked like the better team in those first 16 minutes or so. And right now they've collected the points that they need to collect, right? And I think like they look like a decent team, and they get to play Orlando this weekend. So maybe it'll be a good match. And Castellanos has scored, so that's been a big plus for them.
Number 2, the Revs.
Yeah, so this one was tough. But I think the game that it wasn't exciting, it wasn't thrilling, but to beat Atlanta, who I think is still a good team, and to play them well, and I think that they have the talent. Like with Heel, I mean, he's such a top talent that like you look at him and go, if he's doing something well, then this team's going to thrive. They beat DC like they should have. It wasn't a thrilling win, but again, they kept the clean sheet. I thought that they did a nice job of coming back against Chicago. It wasn't a good result, I would think, because they are, I think, steps above them. But I think it was a good result, and the fact that it was their first match back. Heel was, just starting now to get back into it again. A 2-0 deficit and come back to be able to draw that on the road at Soldier Field. And those fans were pretty pumped up for that home opener. That's why I've got them second.
And number 1, Seattle Sounders.
That one's easy. The Seattle Sounders are right now the best team. I mean, defensively, they look good. I thought that they did nice.
They look good.
Yeah, offensively, they look like world beaters. And now you add Nico Ladero back into the mix. And they drew with LAFC. They smashed in LA Galaxy. They crushed Minnesota. It wasn't even close. It's a team that is just, I think, also a little pissed off with everybody else like us that puts them 4th or 5th. That all mixed in with the fact that Schmetzer, I still think, is a good coach, and the fact that he changed that formation, was willing to make that change and not be hard-headed with his tactics. I think that that's made them the best team in the West.
All right, let's wrap this up. Let's go to the schedule. We have tonight, May 4th. So if you're listening to this after the fact, you missed this. We have Philadelphia versus Atlanta United at 8 p.m. on FS1 against for the Champions League here. Then we have Cruz Azul versus Toronto FC at 10:15. That should also be on FS1. Monterrey tomorrow versus Columbus at 8 o'clock on one of the Fox channels. And then also Club America versus Portland at 10:15. Then back at MLS, we have Friday, Real Salt Lake versus San Jose. Quakes, 9:30 p.m. You can find it on the ESPN Plus there. Okay. So hold on. I just got an update here. Monterrey and Columbus is on FS2 tomorrow. Then FS1 is at Club America Portland. All right. ESPN Plus is RSL versus San Jose on Friday, May 7th. Saturday, May 8th, we have Chicago Fire versus Philadelphia at 1 p.m. on MLS Plus. ESPN Plus on MLS Plus. MLS Live on ESPN Plus, whatever I'm saying. Just watch it on ESPN Plus, unless you're a local person. Then at 1 o'clock as well, we have New York Red Bulls versus Toronto on ESPN Plus. We have Columbus versus DC at 1:30 on Saturday, also on ESPN Plus. Also at 1:30, we have Nashville versus New England. You guessed it, ESPN Plus. 3 o'clock, we have Vancouver versus Montreal. That is on ESPN Plus. Then at 3:30 on Twitter and Univision and TUDN, you have FC Dallas versus Houston Dynamo, a Dallas derby there. I mean, not a Dallas derby, a Texas derby there. I was too excited for the alliteration. 6 o'clock, you have Orlando versus NYCFC on ESPN. That one's going to be great because these are two teams that faced off opening day of their first season. They both entered the league the same time. Should be fun. Then on Big Fox, we got LA versus LAFC. That's right, the first El Tráfico. That's at 8 o'clock. And then at 10 p.m., we have Colorado versus Minnesota on ESPN+. Then on Sunday, we have some fun here with Miami versus Atlanta on ABC at 1 o'clock. Then we have at 3 o'clock, Portland versus Seattle on ABC. And at 7:30 on FS1, Sporting Kansas City versus Austin FC. What games are speaking out to you here, Logan?
Oh man, this is a jam-packed weekend. We went from weekend to like, oh my gosh, look at these fixtures weekend. I guess if I'm can we pick one? Or we have to pick one?
Yeah, just pick one.
All right. Something's calling me about obviously Portland and Seattle Cascadia Cup. It's the first time they're going to square off this year. Nico Ladero will be back. And I think he'll play quite a bit, if not start. I think that you're looking at Diego Valeri playing and starting. I think the battles of the 10s that look really good. I think Portland needs to get back into some kind of form. Whether, they kind of try to rotate. I don't see them rotating much in Cascadia Cup. I think that it's a game that they want to win, definitely. It's on national television. And the way that Seattle's playing, I'm really excited to see what Portland thinks of that, because I think Seattle
might destroy them
right now is the better team. So it'll be interesting to see. Right. So that's the game that caught my eye when I first saw the fixture list.
I'm going to say El Tráfico here. I'm really excited for that, though I may not actually be home for it. I have to watch it later.
I'll tweet it at you.
Yeah, tweet it at me. How about you go to the game and then live tweet it to me?
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll like that. Yeah. I'm sure they'll like that.
Yeah.
I think that actually one of the fans ran onto the NYCFC and Cincy game. They were recording it from their iPhone. It was like really close to the pitch because I was wondering why. Oh wait, no. Sorry, that was ESPN. I forgot. In New York City.
Yeah, that's a very bad camera angle. But that's a home game, right? Orlando NYCFC. So you get to go to that. Yep. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, that'll be exciting.
6 o'clock. Then you get home and watch El Tráfico. Awesome.
Yeah. So I'll be in El Tráfico while I'm watching El Tráfico.
You'll be in El Tráfico. I think that about wraps us up here. Let's go ahead and let me give the follow notes here for people that want to follow us if you haven't got tired of us. Good thing is my shorts are dry now. No more water. Spill it on them. So that was a fun hour of drying off there. You can follow us on Twitter at Stateside Show, Instagram at Stateside Show, Facebook.com/Stateside Show, or email us statesideshow@gmail.com. We are on YouTube, so if you were listening to this and you wanted some fun Star Wars references to watch on May the 4th, you can go ahead and watch us on YouTube. If you want to see what Jack and AJ look like, our guests, you can find us on YouTube. I always find it interesting when I listen to a podcast. I'm like, I wonder what this person looks like that I'm listening to.
Yep.
And you can do that now as we are on YouTube. You can listen and watch us, see what we look like, and all the good stuff. So that is that. Enjoy the rest of May the 4th. If you're listening to us on the 5th, then have a happy Revenge of the 5th, and we'll catch you all next week as we break down week 4 of MLS, and hopefully not be mourning three MLS teams losing to big MX teams in the Champions League. So hopefully that's not the case. But we will catch you all next week, and enjoy.